Let's make a custom entity with Geckolib 4 in 1.19.4 for Fabric. Alright, we found ourselves back in the challenge once more, and in this tutorial we're going to be adding Geckolib to our project over here, and with this we're also going to be adding a custom entity. Now the reason we're doing it with Geckolib here again is because while Geckolib 4 has released, which has come with a whole host of changes, so all of my 1.19.2 tutorials for Geckolib will not work in 1.19.3 and above, as is per usual, right? Like lots of changes happen here, but no worries at all. We're going to get through this. No issue. Now, the first thing that we need to do is we need to add Geckolib as a dependency to our project right here. So to do this, we're going to go to the build.gradle file and we're going to add this. Now, we will also navigate to the Geckolib wiki right here. Now, for the time being, this is still 1.19.3 over here. No worries. This is probably going to get fixed in a little bit, but overall, what we need is the Maven repository right here. So we're going to copy this line specifically, and we're going to navigate back to the build.gradle file, and we're going to go to the repositories right here, and we're going to add it right here. That's the first step. And the second step then is to go back and add the mod implementation right here. We're going to copy this as well, and we're just going to add this in the dependencies, very important. And we want to change this to 1.19.4. Okay, and 4 dot, and then the question is, let's actually take a look. So the current version is 4.1.1. Usually I would recommend taking the same version that I'm doing this in, but once again, in the description or in the pinned comment, I will have a compatibility. So if there's any version that breaks this, then I will hopefully be able to update that via some sort of link or something like that. So I'm going to do 4.1.1. That is great. And then in the top right corner, load the Gradle changes. This is going to download the version of Geckolib, and it's going to add this as a dependency to our project, basically meaning that if you then build your jar file, you always also have to add Geckolib as well. However, we will also be able to tell the user this. This is going to be done with adding this in the fabric mod JSON file. We're going to see that in just a moment. But for the time being, we'll just let this run through until it's done, and then we will continue. All right, there we go. Build successful in 36 seconds. Absolutely amazing. And now we can go to the fabric mod JSON file, and you can see that we have a depends on here, right? And we can add different depends in here. So what we can do is we can, for example, copy this over, and we can say this depends on Geckolib, and we are dependent on Geckolib, let's say higher or equal to 4.1.1, because that's the current version that we're using. And now in theory, nothing should happen right here. However, if we were to try to load into the game inside of Minecraft itself, so we're making a jar file, you put that jar file into your mods folder, and then try to load in without Geckolib, we're going to get an error that says something like, hey, Geckolib 4.1.1 is not present, please add this. And that's just really user-friendly so that the user knows, oh, I actually also have to add Geckolib. But now that this is added, we can now continue to adding the entity, and the entity is going to be this one right here, a tiger already prepared. You will have the BB model, as well as all of the things are going to be downloadable for you as well, so you will be able to use this as well. So you can see this is the model, and then it also has 3 animations. We have a walking animation, as you can see, and we have an idle animation, which is basically the little bit of breathing and the tail just wagging around, and then a sitting animation as well. Now the sitting animation we're not really going to use. We're not going to make this a, an entity that can sit, but you can use that sitting animation, of course, as well if you want to. If you don't know anything about Blockbench or anything like that, I also have a short series on how to make an entity with Geckolib and all of that. I will link that in the top right corner. It can be really useful. And now we're going to export this so that this particular entity can be used inside of our game. Another very important thing is that if you want to open this, right, you should be making sure that under plugins, you have the Geckolib animation utils plugins installed. Otherwise, there might be issues here. So keep that in mind as well. But once that is the case, you can go to File, Export Geckolib model, and you can see it basically makes a JSON file. This is a tiger.geo.json. We're going to save this, and then you can go to the Animate tab, and you can go to Animations, and you can say Export Animations. We want to export all of them, say Confirm, and then once again, this is a tiger.animation.json, so we're just going to say Save, and now we have 2 JSON files that we can use for this particular model. You also need the texture. If this is part of the BB model file, you can just right-click and Save As, and we're going to save this as the tiger PNG as well. So we're just going to save this, and now we have 3 files, 2 JSON files and a PNG file, and that is all that we need. To proceed in this, we're going to add the folders immediately. In our tutorial mode assets folder, we're going to right click, make a new directory called animations, and this is where the animation JSON goes. Pretty crazily enough, this is going to have the tiger.animation.json. All right, that's great. And then in the tutorial mode folder again, we're going to have a geo folder. That's going to take the GeoJSON file. Let's just close those. And then in the textures, we're just going to make a new directory called entity. And this is going to have the tiger.png texture file. So those are all of the files. And this is actually all that we need in terms of the files. And now we're making the entity. So entities can be quite complicated. I will try to basically separate it out so that you know what is Geckolib specific and what is entity specific. However, we're not going to go into insane detail, but you're at least going to be able to add an entity with Geckolib after this. So in the tutorial mode package, we're going to make a new package called entity. Inside of there, we'll add a new Java class. This is the mod entities class. And this one will have our tiger. Now for our tiger, to register that, we actually need the custom tiger entity class as well. So for this, we'll make a new package in the entity package. I call it custom. I just usually like that. And then we're going to add a new class. This is the tiger entity. There we go. Now the tiger entity is going to be very interesting. So the first thing is going to extend the animal entity class. This is just the entity class from Minecraft itself. So hover over here, implement methods. This is going to override the create child method. And then we'll also create the constructor matching super, making sure that we change this to public. This is extremely important. Now, in theory, this is all that we really need to add our animal entity. However, there's two things that are quite important, and that is setting the goals and then also setting the attributes. So these are specific for Minecraft. We're not doing anything with Geckolib just yet. I'll copy those over. All of the code is going to be available to you in the description below in the GitHub repository. And what you will see is that you have the set attributes. This is a static method because this is going to be called in a different place in just a moment. And this is actually very important. So you need this. This basically, sets, as you can see, sets the health, the attack damage, the speed, and the movement speed of your particular animal. And then we have goals. Goals are basically the AI of your mob, right? This determines what the actual mob is doing, well, all the way around. So you can see it has a swim goal. This just simply means that it doesn't sink to the bottom of water. That's literally all that the swim goal means. We have a melee attack goal, which is going to attack something that has been selected by the target selector. You can see there's a goal selector and a target selector. Now, those are two different things. And you can see that basically when it has found a target, right, then it's going to attack it with a melee attack. That's the general idea. And the targets can be either a player, a merchant, or a chicken. So those are basically done with these classes. You can always go into the goals by middle mouse button clicking on them. And you should usually find some interesting Java docs that will basically make it a little more clear on what everything is. Then there's also a wander around for goal and a look around goal. There are, of course, plenty of other goals. What I always suggest is going to any of those goals, and you can see this extends the goal class. If you now click on this and press Ctrl H, you'll see all of the goals and we can expand them. And there is, well, a lot of goals, as you can clearly see. So this is definitely more advanced territory in terms of programming in Java, just knowledge that you need. So for the time being, especially if you're a beginner, keep it with this. If you really want to add a lot of different entities, a bunch of Java knowledge required, but for the time being, hopefully the goals sort of make sense. And when it comes to the priority, very important, lower numbers are a higher priority. I don't know why that's the case, but the general idea would be that the first thing that happens is a swim goal. Even if it could attack, no, we're first of all going to swim. And, if it doesn't have anything to attack, then it wanders around. And if it doesn't have anything to wander around, then we're going to just look around. That is the idea. So it goes from the lowest to the highest in order. That's the idea. Creating the child is actually fairly straightforward. However, we're going to make a deliberate error over here because we actually need to first register it in order to actually spawn the child. So this is one of those things where it gets a little bit circular, but no worries at all. In the mod entities class, we're now going to have a public static final entity type from net Minecraft entity, and then angled brackets tiger entity, and this is going to be the tiger. This is equal to registry, incredibly important, from net Minecraft registry. Make sure to choose the correct one. Hit the tab key to autocomplete, and then we're going to register this under registries, this time, .entity type, comma, new identifier, this one right here, there you go, tutorial mod.modid, and then the name is going to be tiger. Then we want a fabric entity type builder right here, .create. We're going to create this with a spawn group of creature and the tiger entity : new, and then .dimensions. This is going to be the dimensions of the hitbox basically. So there's going to be entity dimensions .fixed, and we're going to call this 1.5 and 1.75. I think that's going to be good. And then after the second parentheses, closing parentheses, a build, and then we can move this one right here and a semicolon, and that is it. Now we have our tiger over here, and it should be registered totally fine. And we can now take this into the tiger entity, and we can return mod entities.tiger tiger.create and then passing in the server world right here. And there we go. We've now created a child. Beautiful. Right, one more thing we need to do in the tutorial mod class, we want to add the fabric default attribute registry, this one right here, .register, with the mod entities.tiger. And then we want to say tiger entity.set attributes, and there you go. That is all that we need to do. And these are all of the steps that are specific for Minecraft, basically. Do be aware though, if you were to just start the game, your tiger would not have a model and it would not have a renderer. So it wouldn't actually appear in any way, shape, or form into your mod. However, these are all of the things that are specific to Minecraft/Fabric. And now we're going to jump into the specific things that are needed for Geckolib, and that's going to be very interesting indeed. So first things, we want to implement the geo entity interface right here. Hit tab to autocomplete and hover over this, implement methods. You can see we need two methods, the register controllers method as well as the get animatable instance cache method. Now this one right here is very easily solvable because we just need to make a new private animatable instance cache right here. We're just going to call this cache, and this is equal to a new singleton animatable cache passing in this. There you go. And then down here, we can just return cache. So very straightforward for this one. The other one is a little bit more complicated. So the register controllers one, we're going to take the parameter here and we're going to say controller register.add. We're going to make a new animation controller. We're going to pass in this. We're going to call it controller. And then we're going to make a comma with a 0 transition tick. And we're going to say this : predicate, which doesn't exist just yet. So you can see this is going to be red. Absolutely no worries. We're going to hover over this. We're going to create the method predicate. And you can see we now have created this method. And inside of here, we now want to basically say, okay, which type of animations are going to play when what happens. The general idea is that at the very bottom, you just want to return the play state.continue. And then here we want to return the idle animation. So this is going to be animation state.getController.set animation. And then the animation that we want to set is the raw animation.begin.then. So this is now going to be the name of the animation. I will show you where this comes from in just a moment. Animation.tiger.idle. And this is going to be the animation.loopType.loop in this case, because we want the idle animation to loop. So this would basically add a idle animation in a loop, and it would play whenever because, well, it's the idle animation and it should play whenever. The name of this animation, actually given via Blockbench right here, animate. So you can see this is the animation.tiger.walk, animation.tiger.idle, animation.tiger.sitting. Those are the names of the animations, so do keep that in mind. And we of course also want the walking animation, and that usually works with by taking the animation state in an if statement and say is moving, right? So if is moving, then we want to say animation state dot get controller again dot set animation, and we want to say raw animation dot begin dot then, and this is going to be the animation .tiger.walk, and that's going to be the animation loop of loop again in this case. There you go. And that will actually add the animations to our entity. So that is pretty much the animations done. Now we still don't have a renderer and we still don't have a model because those are the next things that we need. But the tiger entity itself is completely done. So I usually make a new package right here, and I'm going to call this the client package. And so there we're going to make the tiger model as well as the tiger renderer. So make a new class over here. This is the tiger renderer. You want to start with the model first. So this is going to extend the geo model of type tiger entity. And we're going to hover over this, implement the methods. Those are three methods: the get model resource, the get texture resource, and the get animation resource. Now those are incredibly easy to fill because they only need new identifiers. And they're also always going to be, of course, tutorial.mod.id. And then the path is going to be geo/tiger.geojson. So here we're basically referencing all of our JSON files that we have exported from our Blockbench model. This is the texture. This is this textures/entity/tiger.png, not JSON. Make sure that this is all written correctly with the ending, and this is now the tiger animation JSON, and this is not in the geo but the animations folder. There you go. So make sure that the paths here are correct, and then you should be fine. One more thing that we want to set, and this is for the head rotation. Now I will actually copy this over because it's always going to be the same. So you can see this is the set custom animations method that you want to override. You want to get the head bone, and which is very important. If you have a custom Blockbench model that you're making, and it's not this one, the head right here, this needs to be called head. Otherwise, it will not work. Otherwise, you can see it's going to be null and nothing's going to rotate. So the bone, right, in this case, this one right here, which is a group, right? That's a bone. That has to be called head, otherwise it will not find it. So do keep that in mind as well. But if that is the case, then you have a tiger model right here. Absolutely amazing. And we can then proceed to the renderer. The renderer is going to extend the GeoEntity renderer of type tiger entity. And we're gonna hover over this, create constructor matching super. Now, what you might find is that this will give you an error. If this is the case, that's a big oof, because then you have actually set up your entire project with a split client and common sources. That is doable in the new template. If you look at the template generator, you probably had this one checked right here. If that is the case, I don't know how to fix that other than putting your renderer and your model into the proper client packages. That's all I know. I don't know if you can fix it any other way. If anyone knows how to fix that, please do enlighten us in the comments below. I just know that the easiest thing is just to not split the client and the common sources, because that's personally what I do. So do keep that in mind. If nothing's red over here, if you're not getting any errors, absolutely no worries, then we can just proceed. We first of all want to get rid of the geo model over here, and instead of passing it in, we want to say a new tiger model. There you go. And we also want to override the get texture location method, passing in the same thing as we had here. I don't think this is strictly necessary, however, I do like to have this. And then one other thing is we want to override the render method right here, and before the super, that's the very long method signature, before the super, we want to say if entity.isBaby, we want to scale this down, right? So we basically want to say, hey, you know what, we want to scale this baby down, or like the entire model. We want to scale this down, and we want to do poststack.scale, and we want to scale this to, let's say, 0.4. I think that's fine. 0.4f, 0.4f, 0.4f. I highly recommend doing it all the same in all directions, because otherwise it's going to look very stretched and weird. But of course, you can play around with this a little bit. This is basically going to scale the actual model, the entire rendering thing, basically. Awesome. Now we just need to take the renderer and actually connect it with our tiger entity. For that, we want to go into our client class over here in the client mod initializers, and we want to say entity renderer registry, this one right here, .register mod entities .tiger tiger renderer : new. And bada bing bada boom, we are done. Indeed, those are all of these steps. So we have a tiger entity class which controls, some of the AI and some of the ways that the entity interacts with the world, let's say. We also have a model which basically does all of the model stuff, right? It points to all of the JSON files and the PNG file that we have exported from Blockbench. It also does the rotating of the head, and then the renderer is specifically there for scaling for a baby, as well as sort of connecting everything together. How is this rendered? One last thing, do keep in mind to have the set attributes right here. If you not have this and spawn the entity, you will crash the game because you need to set attributes. This is very important. And if all of the steps are done, we can do one more thing, and that is in the item package, we can add a custom spawn egg, because that's usually what you want to do, right? So let's just duplicate the item here, and this is the tiger_spawn_egg, and we're going to call it tiger_spawn_egg here as well. And this is going to be a new spawn egg item. This will take in, first of all, the entity itself, so mod entities.tiger, then a primary color. I've already searched what this is. This is going to be D5E36, and the next color is going to be 0D00. There you go. And then new fabric settings. So these are just hex codes for the colors, nothing too spectacular. However, of course, with an item also comes a custom item model that we need. So we no longer have models right here, which is very strange. So what we need to do is we need to, of course, add this to our data. Now, the data generation works totally fine. However, this one is very strange. The way to do this is not as you would expect in the item models. No, you actually do it in the block models. I have no idea why. It just is what it is. So in the block state model generator, if you go down all the way to where all of this stuff is generated, at the very bottom, spawn egg get all for each registered parent. I have no idea why this is in the block state model generator. It makes absolutely no sense to me, but that is what it is, so we need to do it right here. So inside of here, we're going to say block state model generator dot register parented item model mod items dot tiger spawn egg model IDs dot get Minecraft namespace item template underscore spawn underscore egg. And you just need to do this for all of your eggs. So for this, we just go once again to the data gen over here. We're just going to run this, and then it should generate the JSON file. Now this JSON file is incredibly simple. It is like, there's nothing to it that is in any way, shape, or form complicated. And yes, you could just also add it manually, but let's be honest, it's fine. We've started with the data gen and we're going to finish with the data gen. So in the generated folder, assets, models, item, we now have the tiger spawn egg, and you can see it's literally just the parent over here. That's all there is to it. And that's of course going to be colored in with these particular colors. That's the general idea. And now we have everything that we need in order to, well, have our tiger in game. So let's go into the game and see if it works. All right, find ourselves in Minecraft. Now I have committed one of the big blunders, and that is not added to the item group, but that's okay. We can just give ourselves the actual thing. So this is tutorial mod, and there's the tiger spawn egg. There you go, it is added, and then we can spawn it by right-clicking, and there we go. The tiger is there, and it has an idle animation. If I now go into survival mode, it's going to attack me fairly quickly. There you go, because it's looking for the player entities to, well, as a target, and you can see it even rotates its head around before, you know, doing stuff that is, I mean, maybe a little bit too much, but, you know, those are all fine. It is still pretty cool, all things considered. Let's see. So you can see, there it goes. And if we spawn a baby, right, there you go. Look at this. Look at this beauty. Look at this. Tiny tigers. Awesome. Absolutely awesome. Well, everything working as expected. Then the spawn egg is also added to the item group. And last but not least, we can also add a translation. There we go. That will be it. Right, that's going to be for this tutorial. Next time, we'll actually add our entities to the world gen. See you in that tutorial. So, yeah.